Hello, everybody. This is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools, and welcome to a webinar on the Lightning Conductor. So we are going to have quite an action-packed webinar today. We've got 4 demos and not many PowerPoint slides, you'll be glad to know. So what we're going to do first of all, though, is just introduce the company to anybody that is new to Lightning Tools and also myself, and then we'll get started learning about the Lightning Conductor and what it can do for you, and we'll be focused on some of the new functionality as well. So we've got a release that is going to be launched tomorrow, which is going to be 5.1.00, and that's got some exciting new features, and you're going to be the first people to see those new features today. So like I said, let's take a look at Lightning Tools and who we are. So Lightning Tools is a company headquartered in the UK, founded back in 2007, and we've got 2 offices, one in Orlando, Florida, and one here in the UK. And yeah, we create our products and sell our products, support our products from this side of the pond, but also we have a tech support team and onboarding team based out in the US as well. So we have a series of different products, not just the Lightning Conductor that we're going to be taking a look at, but that's the one that we're going to be focused on today. If anybody wants to explore any of the other products, we have our permissions management tool, which is a contextual permissions management tool called DeliverPoint. This works for SharePoint on premises, SharePoint online, and also Teams, as do all of our products. We also have Lightning Filters, which happens to be free, and that complements the Lightning Conductor and also the data viewer. We have our discussion board tool, which will work inside of Teams and also SharePoint. And we have the data viewer, which is our data integration and visualization tool. And we also have our Lightning Forms suite, which comprises of Lightning Forms, also list actions, and the document generator. And that is helping you to design either classic SharePoint list forms or modern SharePoint list forms in SharePoint 2019 and SharePoint Online. And we also have My Teams, which we introduced a few months ago. And My Teams is a product that helps you to aggregate content from different teams, different channels, those that matter most to you, into one simple to access view that you'll be able to use when you're inside that team's environment. Okay, so that's what we do as a company. And the agenda today, we're going to first of all have a look at what is the Lightning Conductor. I will keep that brief because I know that some of the people on the call today already use the Lightning Conductor, but there's always some things that hopefully you'll be able to learn about for the first time, even if you're an experienced user of the Lightning Conductor. Wow, I sound like a cabin crew saying that. But yeah, we're going to be taking a look at the Lightning Conductor, what it can do for you, and we're going to jump straight into some demonstrations of using the quick configuration, first of all, so we can build content aggregation very quickly with some standard type scenarios of aggregating tasks and document libraries and things like that. We'll also be working in the advanced mode today as well. So we'll have a look at what the advanced mode can give you that the quick configuration cannot. And we'll also be building some content views inside of Microsoft Teams as well. So 3 demos before we jump into the new features of 5.1. And I think I made a word up. We've gone even moderner, so even more modern with the Lightning Conductor. So one of the things that we've built into this new version is new modern side panels, so that you can open up content contextually from within inside a site, even if that item or document, whatever it might be, lives inside another site or even another site collection somewhere inside your tenant. We'll be able to open it up in the site that you're in a nice modern side panel. We have also created some calculated column templates. So if you've used the Lightning Conductor before, you'll know that you can create some pretty powerful calculated columns. So these are not columns that exist already inside the list. These are columns that you can create inside the Lightning Conductor, perform a calculation. Might be a simple concatenation or numerical calculation, but you can also take it much more advanced than that and build some script to build some more complex scenarios, and that would allow you to generate buttons or be able to update items and things like that actually through the view of the content itself. So we've built a few as templates that you can just feel free to use. You can also customize them if you want to, and of course you can still build your own as well. We have a brand new Json view, which is the slideshow view, so excited to show you that one. And if anybody has used the file viewer with the standard SharePoint libraries, you'll be glad to know that you could do the same thing now with the Lightning Conductor. So we can actually aggregate document libraries from multiple different sources into one view, and then we can open those documents up by using two Lightning Conductors on the same page. And we'll be taking a look at that today as well. And there's a plus more, so there's a few other features as well that we'll be taking a look at today as well. And as always, you're going to have lots of time at the end of the webinar today for any questions that you might have. And I put a message out there in the chat window. If anybody does have any questions, feel free to post them into the Q&A panel, and I will get to those at the end of the webinar. Okay, so let's jump in. So what is the Lightning Conductor? So anybody that, again, is new to the Lightning Conductor, what this is basically a content aggregator. And if you've been around the SharePoint space for quite some time, you may have used, back in as early as 2007, the content query web part. And this was available inside of SharePoint 2010 and so on. And back then, that was actually the launch of the Lightning Conductor. We launched it, or we created it, so that you could aggregate across site collections. At the time, the content query web part could not aggregate across site collections. And Microsoft evolved their web parts as well. So they created new web parts that could aggregate across site collections, but it meant you had to do a lot of code to build a view that was of any use to anybody. And of course, that's not something that your average user of Microsoft SharePoint would be able to do. So the Lightning Conductor gives you that ability to aggregate SharePoint lists and library content, build the views the way you want it, with or without code. The ones that you can see on the screen here are totally without code, so you can do all of your conditional formatting, data bars and things like that. There's also lots of different types of views, things like calendar views and tile views that you can use without having to write code as well. But if you do want to get your hands dirty in code, you can, and you can build a view the way that you want it to be displayed. So that's really what the Lightning Conductor is. It's a way of bringing content into one place, and that content is usually going to be relevant to you as a user. And that one place could be a SharePoint page, it could be Microsoft Teams, it could be SharePoint list content such as tasks or contacts or announcements. It could also be document libraries or picture libraries, and we go way beyond that as well with other apps that exist inside of Microsoft 365. So if you had or have Planner in use, or Microsoft To Do, OneDrive, for example, we can also aggregate from them into views as well. So the whole idea is that you don't have to remember, where did I create that document? Or I know that somebody else created this document a while ago, where did they put it? And of course, there is search for that. But having to sort of navigate and try and find that content can be quite challenging. So this is a way to bring the content that is important to you into one place, and yeah, build multiple views of that content and highlight what's important to you using formatting and conditional formatting. So that's basically what the Lightning Conductor is. Let's jump into our first demo, and that is going to be using the quick configuration to aggregate content into a view. So I'm going to bring up SharePoint right now, and we'll start off with SharePoint. Anybody wanting to use Teams, we're going to get there as well. So if you can just hang with me for a while. So what we're going to do first of all is just navigate into a site somewhere. So I'm going to use my Sales Hub, and inside the Sales Hub, we're going to go in and add a new page. Now we could add the Lightning Conductor to the home page. Some of the views that you'll see today are going to look great on communication pages and home sites and so on, but they could also, be beneficial on their own page within a site somewhere. So it doesn't really matter where you're going to create it. You've got the same functionality. So we're going to create a blank page. So we get the standard graphic at the very top here. Of course, you can change that, make it look prettier. We can give this page a name as well, which I'm going to do. I'm going to call it the Lightning Conductor webinar. I'll even correct my typo. There we go. So Lightning Conductor webinar. And in here, we're going to go in and add the Lightning Conductor. So we can hit the plus icon on the modern page, choose the Lightning Conductor, and then we can get started with our configuration. So we hit the configure button. That's the only thing we can click. So we click the configuration button, and here we are inside the quick configuration. And this is how you get into the advanced configuration. So there is the advanced mode just down here, but we're going to work in the quick configuration for a moment, and we're going to do just a few examples. We're going to start off with a task example. So when we hit the first drop down, the Lightning Conductor is presenting us with some of those most common type scenarios that you may want to aggregate from. So tasks and documents, announcements, these are all lists and libraries. And then we get into some of the Microsoft Graph entities, such as users and groups and planner tasks and to-do lists and things like that as well. So these are the most common ones. Now, of course, these aren't going to work with your custom lists. So if you've created custom lists, you've created custom templates, and you want to get that content, that's where the advanced mode comes in, and we're going to have a look at that today. But these are your sort of everyday type scenarios where you want to aggregate some content. And even if you are using custom content types and document libraries and things like that, you can actually start off with a quick configuration and then start modifying your grid view, which we're also going to take a look at today as well. So let's start off with tasks. So we'll select that. The next option is, how do we want to refine the view? So of course, you can refine it however you want to refine it. When you get into the grid view, you can build your own filters, you can sort it, you can add grouping, you can do conditional formatting and so on, all without code. But here's just a few getting started filters, if you like. So we've got all tasks, which means there is no filter. We've got my tasks, which is filtering those tasks based on the current user, or we have my overdue tasks. So yeah, based on the current user that are overdue. So we'll go with all tasks to bring back the most content we can. And then we can choose where this content is coming from. And again, these are some common scenarios. You can get as granular as you like in the advanced mode. But what this is giving me is the ability to aggregate from things like the current site, or from the current site and any subsites that this one might have. Also the current site collection. We have hub sites and associated sites, and we've also got the entire tenant. And usually when I mention that, people start to quiver and think that, oh, they're going to see content that they shouldn't see. Don't worry, everything is security trimmed. So you're only going to see the information that you have the ability to view, the permissions to read. And then underneath that, we've got same sort of scopes, but using search. So we can use either real-time results, which behind the scenes uses the SharePoint object model, the client-side object model, to get at the content, or these bottom ones are using the search index to bring back the content, which isn't real-time, it's cached information, but offers better performance. So that's the sort of trade-off that you've got between those two different options there. So what we're going to do is start off with the current site and the associated sites. And then the last question I get asked is, how do I want to view it? And we're going to have a look at all of these. We've got things like the grid view, which resembles a standard sort of SharePoint list view where you've got columns and rows and you can customize that as much as you like. And then we've also got things like the adaptive card view, and we've got a calendar view as well, and so on as well. And you'll see that these differ based on the data source. We'll have a look at document libraries in just a moment, just so I can show you how that differs. And there is just one other check mark at the bottom here, is do I want to display person avatars? So that is basically the person card, which brings the Lightning Conductor to light when you're aggregating tasks. You can see here we've got the person card behind each of the people that have tasks assigned to them. Okay, so that's our first view. Obviously, we could go through and publish that page. I can do that, in fact, and whilst we publish the page, you'll be able to see it from an end user perspective. So whilst we're not in edit mode, users will be able to come into the Lightning Conductor and they can filter it, they can sort it, and so on. So if we want to maybe sort the priority, we could of course do that, or sort by the percent complete, etc. And they could filter out tasks that belong to them and that type of thing. Whilst you're in edit mode, you can get into the design of that grid view. So if I wanted to hit that drop down again, notice that I also get into the column settings, which you didn't see from an end user's perspective. So in here, we could show some more columns. It might be that we also want to include the start date. So I could go through and throw that in here. We could also go in and format that start date to just the date. We don't need the date and time necessarily. So we could go and add our data formatting to that one. We could also add some conditional formatting. There's some conditional formatting already added to you using these pill colors. So as we go into the formatting here, you can see there is a a pill color assigned to this one. So using a light blue, and that's for the not started tasks. As we expand some of these, we can see we're using green for in progress and amber for completed and so on. So you can use that as an example to get started, or of course you could go in and add your own conditional formatting in here too. So the way we could do that is just come into the conditional formatting here. We can add formatting for high, medium, and low priority, or high, normal, and low priority. And we could use the same colors, or we can also use things like icons as well. So we can change these to different colors, choose where the icon is going to sit, and repeat that for each one. And there's all sorts of different icons that you can choose. I'm just going to go with the Pepperpot type icon, which sort of gives you a sort of KPI type view. So there's some conditional formatting. It just stands out a little bit better now, so we can see which are the high priority and the low priority and so on. So that's our first view. And the reason why I say view is because you can add multiple views inside the same instance. So I'm going to add tasks in here. Let's go in and do a couple more using the quick configuration. I'll create a view called documents and another one called planner. And for those of you that are already familiar with the Lightning Conductor, thank you for sticking with me just for a moment. We will get into some of the new things very shortly. So this one here is going to be a document roller. So we're using all documents. Again, we've got some refinements. Again, we can choose where we want the content to come from, and we can display avatars. And there is a new exciting feature here called Support Document Preview. I'm going to show you that one shortly, but let's just save this one, and you'll be able to see that we've now got documents being aggregated as well into our view. So we can switch between tasks or documents depending on what view we want. And we've also got Planner here. So this is just going to be a quick example of how to bring content in from outside of SharePoint. So this is using Microsoft Planner. And instead of the grid view, let's throw it into a task view. So now we can go through and see all the planner plans that I am a member of, and I can see all the tasks inside of each of those plans. So if I want to switch the plans, we can do that, and we can mark them as completed. Once we've done them, we can also add new plans, and we can also click in here to modify things like the assignees and so on. Okay, so that's the type of thing we can do. The views can also be selected based on a connection. So notice that we can connect the current view, and connecting the current view could be through something like a query string. So you can actually come through to this view based on the link that the user clicked in order to get to this page. So that way we could build out a view called tasks, a query string called tasks and a query string called documents, one called planner, and pass that through to the Lightning Conductor so that depending on that URL, that will load the most relevant view for that user. And if you're doing that, you could even go through and hide the entire command bar here. Yeah, you can hide all the different options, including the view changing menu. So now that would be the only way where users could go in and change the view is if they clicked onto the relevant link and so on. All right, so that is our first demo, the quick configuration, and getting started with that. Let's just pull up my slides here. So I left quite a few slide decks open apparently. Okay, so yeah, the quick configuration is what we just looked at. Let's look now into the advanced mode to build the content the way that you want to build it. So that means we're not just working with standard lists and libraries. We're actually working perhaps with custom content types, custom lists, and things like that as well. So let's jump into it. So here back in SharePoint, we will go in and edit this page, and let's just add to this one with some more views. So you can get into the advanced mode of any of these existing views, and I will just point that out because this is actually a great way of seeing how something is configured. So if you hit the cog icon for a view that you built using the quick configuration, it takes you into the advanced mode. So you can see in here how the document library aggregation was configured. It's using the object model provider in here, and I'll explain some of these to you in just a moment. It's using a grid view over JSON and XSLT and adaptive cards. The data source is configured here to bring back document libraries. It's got some limits set as well. It's got some columns selected with properties on them. And then finally, it's got some display options set. So things like the data formatting to show the avatar and things like that. So if ever you want to sort of get started before building something from scratch in the advanced mode, you can just have a look at how we've configured some of these quick configurations and dig in deeper that way. So what we're going to do though is create a new one. So we'll hit the plus here, and that gives us new view one. And what we'll do is a document library aggregation. So although we've already got that, I'm going to show you how we can build our own that might use search or might use the object model depending on what we want to do. So we're going to ignore this quick configuration and jump straight into the advanced mode. And in the advanced mode, there's 4 different tabs. The first tab is giving us 4 different options of how we might want to go and aggregate content. So this is where we've got the search rollup provider first of all. If we were to select that one, we are literally going to build a search. And this is the same thing that would happen if you went to search SharePoint at the top. It's doing the same thing, but it's using that search in order to be able to bring back the content. So notice how this is all search query stuff. We can choose a result source. So one of the result sources that we might select here is items matching a content type. If I was to choose that one, then we can come down to the query variables and specify the content type that we want to bring back. And that content type, in this case, would be document. It could be a custom content type in here if you've created your own custom content type. So I can choose document. I can also choose the scope of where this content is going to come from. I can do that through a query template variable, or I can also do it through a query part as well. So I've got the URL of the current site collection that I can put in there, but there's also more that I can get into. So notice we've got things like the site URL that we might want to aggregate from, and we can go through and select those from here and so on as well. So basically, we're just building a query, and part of that is to build your query text, but it already comes with some query text. The query text for this one was just saying, bring back a document or bring back a list item. And if you just want to force that to be just document, you could do that as well. There's things like query timeouts and item limits and things like that that we can set. You can have a good play around those. There's query rules, so you can specify any query rules that you've set as an organization. There's also things like query stemming. So if you're searching for a particular word, then things like fish could become fished or fishing, and so on as well by enabling or disabling the query stemming. So once you've configured your search here, you'll notice that you get the columns, which aren't really columns per se. They're not the columns that you would actually recognize from being inside a document library. These are search managed properties that are mapped to those columns. So they might have a slightly different name. So things like created by is author. And we have also title, which is the name column. We do have size as well. And a few other things that we could go through and select from here. So basically, we're going through and choosing the columns that we want. And because we're using search, if you've got any custom columns, you will need to go through and map those inside the search managed properties. And we've got some good guidance on how to do that on our website. And once you've done it, you can go through and add the managed property, clicking the button here. So you basically give it the name of your managed property and add that in. And that will then display any custom columns that you've created. So once we've done that, we can go down to display, and this allows me to refine the view. So we can choose how we want our title to show. So I'm just going to say no file extension. We can have an author. We'll show the avatar for the author, and for the size, we'll show that in kilobytes and so on. And then we can add column aliases as well. So you might want to do that if you're using the search managed properties. So we could actually still say created by, and we might want to say file size, and at the top here we might have name or file name, And yeah, you can go through and add your conditional formatting and all that sort of thing too. You can also set how many items per page you want to display. And in here, we've got things like which column is a link to the item. And then do we want to also display the item icon? Do we want to open up the document directly? Do we want to use the client applications to open up the document, and so on? So all of these are refinements that you can go through and set inside that advanced mode. So when I hit save, we should now have a document library view, which is bringing back content using search, and it's bringing back a lot of content. So we've got 48 pages with 50 per page. So you can see how that brought that back pretty quickly. And then we could also go back and organize that into folders and things like that too, if we wanted to. That's a document library using search. Let's do a document library that's not using search, using the advanced mode. I'm just going to put OM for object model. And again, so we'll go into the advanced mode, and this time we can choose the object model. And how this will differ is on the data source tab, we're now being selective as to which sites or site collections we want to aggregate the content from. And we can choose how granular this tree view is going to get. So if we're just wanting any documents, I'm just going to go through and choose the document library template. So if I want any document library from any of these site collections, sorry, let me just change multiple site collections. There we go. Notice how the tree view won't actually allow me to drill into them. I'm just simply selecting entire site collections and telling the Lightning Conductor, if you find a document library inside this site collection, that's included inside the scope. But if I want to drill in a bit more, then what we can do is show sites. So now I can expand the site collections and I can choose the sites that I want to include. So we select the sites by simply highlighting the row. What we can also do is hit the checkbox, which means if I want to aggregate from anything in future that may be created as a subsite of partners in this case, then by ticking that checkbox, they will be included in the future. So, and we can go through and select different sites and so on through that way as well. Or we can also just drill down to the actual lists. So if we want to cherry pick different lists or libraries to aggregate from, we can do that as well. Okay, so this is just a slightly different way of working. So if I, let's just stick to this site collection here, I'll tell it I want a document library. We could filter by content type as well. So notice I've got LT sales content types. These are my custom content types. So I can select that and see sales proposals. That's how I'd get into the custom content types as well. So it's not just any document, it's the documents that are sales proposals. So again, we can refine the views. We can select our columns, which this time is a lot easier because it's not managed properties, it's actually columns. So now we can go in and select things like name and modified by, modified, and they all make a bit more sense. We've got all the created by and created date and so on. And again, the ability to drag and drop the order that we want them to be appearing in. And once more, you get to format them. So we can do all our display formatting, and we can also do the same grouping and linking, etc. as you just saw. So we can group by folders, etc. and what have you. Okay, so that's a bit of the advanced mode using the document libraries and the object model. So I want to get into the graph a little bit as well in the advanced mode. So let's just bring back, should we bring back some to do, some Microsoft to do tasks. So if I want to get into the advanced mode this time, we can choose the graph rollup provider. What this is going to ask me for is what type of graph entity I want to query. So notice there's all these graph entities. There is a Microsoft to do list or a Microsoft to do task. So I'll choose the to do list. We can add our query. You can either go and create a custom one, in which case you just build your own graph query, or there's some predefined ones as well. And these will vary depending on which graph entity you're looking at. And when you get to columns, these are some columns that you can select coming from that graph entity, or what you could do is use one of our Json views. So to show you that as well, there is a to-do tasks JSON view, which will save you a lot of pane. And then when we save this, we can go through to that to-do view, and here's my Microsoft To-Do. So I can choose ticket research, I can choose training videos, etc., depending on what list I want to do, and see the different things in there. So this is obviously to go with the tea that was coming in from Planner, so I can get the milk as well. All right, so that's some of the advanced mode, and there's also the ability to pick and choose content from the graph, but by selecting it based on the Microsoft 365 group as well. So if I choose the Microsoft 365 group, I'm going to use Json View again for this. And from the data source, we will come down to selecting entities from teams. So I can aggregate from all my teams or selected teams. So let's just choose a few of these. We should have some marketing ones in here or something like that that we could select from. There's sales and marketing there. And we can again choose the entity type. So I'll choose events this time. Once more, you get to pick your columns coming from that entity, or you can use something like the, I think it's the event agenda. Yes, select that one. So if we choose that, yeah, notice that we're now seeing any events that are inside those teams into a view as well. Okay, so that is the second demo. That is using the advanced mode of the Lightning Conductor to really sort of start to build the kind of content that you want to query yourself, and that will include using any custom columns and things like that too. So let's just rename this this view. So this will be events from teams. There we go. All right, and we're now going to jump into Microsoft Teams, and I'll show you a few that have already been built, but just some useful scenarios in here. So notice that we've got a drop down of views in there as well. So inside your team, we could get at your documents. So you can find all your documents really easily in here. You can get at Microsoft To Do, of course, as well. That's what we've just seen. There's Teams channel calendars that we could aggregate. And there's also tasks as well that we could get at. So you can do pretty much the same thing in the Lightning Conductor in Teams. And the way that you would just go through and configure that, let's just add a new one, in fact. So when I add a new instance of the Lightning Conductor, we'll select it and add it. So that becomes a tab inside my team. So this instance is not configured, so I get to configure it. And you're using exactly the same options as what you just saw. In SharePoint. Okay, and what we can also do, if you want to use the SharePoint lists that you've just gone through and created, you can actually export those as well. So I could export all of these lists, and then inside of Teams, I could import those. So I just go to my downloads here. There we go, let's import that. And it's imported the same views now into the Teams instance of the Lightning Conductor. So we've got the same behavior, whether you're inside the SharePoint experience or the Teams experience. Okay, so let's jump into what's new. So we've just seen this one, Teams. So what is new? Even moderner, as I mentioned. So we've got the new modern side panels that we're going to take a look at. We're going to have a look at the new calculated column templates, a new Json view, which is the slideshow view. We're going to have a look at the document viewer, so that's connecting two different Lightning Conductors, and then a few other new features, such as the ability to show hidden lists, exclude style libraries, and also some nice contextual help and guidance. So let's again dive into a demo to see what is new. So what we're going to do is, first of all, just delete that webpack, and instead we are going to go in and add a new section on our page, and I'm going to go with a 2-column section. In the left-hand column, I'm going to add a Lightning Conductor, and then in the right-hand column, I'm going to add a Lightning Conductor as well. So we've got 2 Lightning Conductors, and the first one, we're going to go in and configure this. So this is going to bring back documents. I could do this using, of course, the advanced mode or the quick configuration. I'll bring back all the documents, and we're going to bring these back in a grid view with displaying avatars and support document preview. And what you'll see in here is I've got all of my documents coming back, but there's a little radio button on the left-hand side, which allows me to select an item. And you'll notice that you can set that manually as well. It's here in the advanced mode. You can choose single selection or multiple selection, depending on what behavior you want. And that will display that radio button so you can select a row, basically. The right-hand Lightning Conductor, we're going to go in and configure that one. And again, we'll tell this to bring back documents from the same scope. And I'm going to switch this out in a moment. So it's looking the same, but we're going to go into the advanced mode for this view. And we're going to change it from using the grid view display provider to the JSON display provider. And under the display, the JSON provider that we're going to use is this new one called the file viewer. So we'll select the file viewer, and that's all we need to do on that one as far as the view is concerned, except for we need to connect these two web parts, and we can connect it on any of the properties we like. I'm going to connect it on the name field. So we will hit the filter on the name column, and instead of saying the name is equal to and then typing in a file name, I'm going to use this web part connector, and we're going to choose the other instance of the Lightning Conductor, and we're going to tell it that we're going to, from the selected item, pass through the name. So now we can save all of that, and notice how it's no longer displaying anything until we find ourselves a document such as this sales revenue document here. So I will select that, and notice how we're now previewing that sales document on the page. And yeah, we can work with that. We can make it full screen and so on. From there, we can refresh any data connections that we've got using that one. So that's with Excel. Of course, we could do a similar sort of thing with Word and PowerPoint, whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. We can bring that through and display it using that web part connection. Okay, so that is our new file viewer view and the ability to preview a document using the Lightning Conductor. So let's just add a new section above this one. I'll just go back to a single column again, and we'll add another instance of the Lightning Conductor, and this time we're going to bring back tasks. So let's bring them back in a grid view, and again we'll display some avatars. Okay, so inside this grid view, you'll notice the current behavior of the Lightning Conductor before this new release, that is. If I hit the link, it's going to open that up in the site where that item belongs, which isn't the nicest behavior. So what we're going to do is go in and hit the display tab inside the advanced mode, and under the grouping and linking, we're going to hit this option and turn it on that says open the item view edit form in the side panel. And we're also going to show the item submenu as well, so I can show you the edit experience of that. So let's just publish that page. So now if we were to hit the task here, we get a nice side panel. And it doesn't matter if that task belongs to another site, it's going to open up contextually right here, so the user doesn't get lost where they are and so on. So that's our view. These are all view only fields. So let's just close that down, but I can hit the ellipsis on this one and choose edit item, and that will also give me an edit panel as well. So if we want to be able to change the due date, which is something I quite regularly do on my tasks, we can go through and do that and update it straight away. Okay, so that's a nice new modern side panel that we have in order to work with inside of the Lightning Conductor. So that's a couple of new features. Let's just have a look now at some of the other ones. So we've got the document view, we've got the modern side panel. I want to show you the new slideshow view. So we're going to add in another instance of the Lightning Conductor in here. Of course, these could be different views, but I'm just doing it this way. So under pictures, we're going to take a look at, well, let's have a look at what we did have before. So from the current site, we had a picture preview JSON view. So we could save that one because this is actually quite a nice view as well. Bringing back some pictures that belong inside the picture library inside this site. And what we can do is go through and select them. So here's some of our team. This was in Dusseldorf at the Collaboration Summit. And by the way, in 2 weeks' time, we're doing a Collab Days, which is a sister company to the Collab Summit. And that's a one-day event at the National Museum of Computing. So if you're in the UK and you want to register for that, feel free to do so. You can go to collabdays.org and you'll find it. So we can go through and preview these different images. That is actually taken from Collab Days earlier on in the year. Yeah, we can also see there's my little girl with a Lightning Tools shirt on for her team that we sponsor. There we go. So that's some nice few images in here. But what we have is another new view as well. This is the slideshow view. Let's just configure a new view with the slideshow. So again, we're going to bring back pictures, and from the current site, we'll have them in a slideshow. So now we can change to the slideshow view and we can flick through our images like this. And this looks fantastic on a communication site. So if you want to add a Lightning Conductor to show company images and things like that and have your users be able to flick through them, you'll be able to do that using that new slideshow view. Okay, so there's another new feature. Let's have a look at another one, which is, again, with the Lightning Conductor, this is going to be the new calculated columns. So files is a good example of this one. So I'm going to work with documents. Let's bring back, again, documents coming from the current site and associated sites. We'll display avatars once more. Why not? And I'll just save that first of all. So each of these documents, they are going to have a typically, well, they're all going to have a file name. Sometimes it's useful to actually show the title because, you know, you get untitled page and things like that showing if it's just on the file name. But the problem is with the title is not everybody fills it out. So what we can do is go down to the columns tab, and instead of showing name, we might decide to add a calculated column. And with the calculated column, we can build whatever calculations we want. So literally, we could work out or concatenate fields, or we could deduct one value from another, whatever we want to do in here. But like I say, you can get more advanced than that as well, which is why we've built in just a few more examples in here. So there's a merge columns example. So I can choose which columns I want to merge. So what I might want to merge is the title or the file name. So if they've filled out the title, it's going to display that because that's the first one I selected. If they haven't, it's going to display the file name. So most of the time we should get a better experience with that. And then we could just call this the file name or document name, whatever we want to refer to it as. And we get a brand new column that I can now go through and select and add that in. So now I have this file name. And for most of these, it's probably going to look exactly the same as what we had, but I'm sure you've experienced that before, where people do leave the title blank, and therefore you don't get the best experience from that. So that's just merging two columns together. It's going to show the first parameter, and if that doesn't exist, if that's null, it's going to show the second parameter. But there's other ones as well that we can do. So we've always been able to show things like the site name, which is known as web title, or even the list title, where the item actually belongs. So if we were to select those, notice how we've got the Lightning Tools sales site for most of these. There's also the partners site for some of them. That's probably it. Okay, so what I might want to do is actually navigate to that site. So I want to make this a hyperlink to the site, and maybe likewise with the list title. So using columns, we can add a calculated column, and in here you've got a parent site link or a parent list link. So if I choose the parent site link, there's the script that you can use using React in order to be able to generate that link. So we can just call this open site or whatever we want to call it, save that, let's display it, and we could drop that down at the bottom here, get rid of parent web title now, and parent list title, we'll have the open site instead. And so there we go, this is now a link to that site, to where that document belongs. Okay, so we just saved you that little bit of hassle by building out these calculated templates for you. And of course, if you've still got other requirements other than those that you've seen, you can still reach out to us and we'll be able to help you in creating your calculated columns. All right, now another feature that we've been working on all year actually for all of our products is in context help, and it's hit the Lightning Conductor now. So if you're not familiar with the Lightning Conductor, you don't even know what company it came from, it's just a web part that you happen to have. Instead of knowing that our website exists where you can get help and so on, you can actually get the help right in the product now. So this is bringing us up really that story that we've told today, what the end user experience is like, the quick configuration and the advanced configuration and so on. So we've got a nice little introduction here on how to use the product. We could then come down to sorting, filtering, navigating the Lightning Conductor. So there's things like the command bar options that you can explore, how to sort as a user, how to do filters, how to do advanced filters, etc. And then we can go on to our third topic, which is the quick configuration. So you can see how to do all of those bits and pieces, and likewise with the advanced configuration. So we talk about that. And again, how to access your different displays and so on as well. Okay, and actually we missed out this example of an adaptive card. I'm just going to throw that in very quickly before we open up for a Q&A. This is not released this time round, but did make it in our last release. So if you've worked with things like Viva Connect and so on, you'll be familiar with the adaptive cards. And there's an adaptive cards designer. So the adaptive cards designer is a Microsoft thing. You can go to adaptivecards.io/designer and you can say, I want to have a new card, and there's lots of different examples of cards. So you can do this weather cards and things like that you could use. This is the sort of default card that you get. And what we're going to do here is actually configure the Lightning Conductor to bring back events using a card. And we've created one for you. So let's just bring back from the current tenant some cards. So in here we've got each one of these is a different card where we can go through and view these events, and we can see where it is start to finish. There is also an adaptive card for tasks as well. So there's the adaptive cards where you can view and you can edit tasks using the card layout. Now, when you go into the advanced mode for this, you'll notice that in here is some sample input data that's going to contain one of your items that you're aggregating. So I'm just going to copy that onto the clipboard, come up to the adaptive card designer and replace this sample text here with our code. And then we could go through and design this, but ideally we'll copy the adaptive card as we've built it, drop that into the adaptive card designer. There we go. So this is what our card looks like, and you can get customizing it. So you don't have to write any code to customize it. You can just go through and set all the properties in here, set the colors, set the layout, etc. And then once you've done, this will be generated again, and you copy and paste it back. So then you get your own adaptive card the way that you want it to appear. All right. So that was our last demo. So we'll open up for Q&A. So we've got 10 minutes. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A panel. I see that there's a few already in there, which I'll be going through. So two of them may or may not be the same person. I'm not sure it's the same question. One was anonymous. Basically, what versions of SharePoint is this tool compatible with? Is it compatible with SharePoint 2016? So simple answer is yes, it's compatible with SharePoint 2016. However, inside of SharePoint 2016, you have the classic look and feel, and you also don't have Microsoft Graph inside of SharePoint on premises. So you can use the Lightning Conductor. You'll be able to aggregate from your SharePoint lists and your SharePoint libraries. There is some nice quick task views and document views and things like that you can use, and you've also got the advanced mode to configure that however you want. So yeah, you can use it in SharePoint 2016. Just to go on and answer that a little bit more, in SharePoint 2019, you do have the modern view. So there is a version of the Lightning Conductor for SharePoint 2019, and the reason why there's a version of the Lightning Conductor SPFX tool that you've seen today for SharePoint 2019 is that, again, you don't get Microsoft Graph in SharePoint on premises. So it's cut down to just the SharePoint lists and libraries and not the other stuff like Planner and To-Do and things like that as well. But yeah, you do pretty much get the same experience there. So yeah, available for all versions of SharePoint is the Lightning Conductor. Is it possible to receive a link or a copy of the recording of this demo? Yes, absolutely. So this is going to be published up on our website tomorrow. So you'll be able to go to lightningtools.com and click onto webinars, which is at the very top, and you'll see the webinar listed there. But we save you that hassle. If you've registered and attended this event, then we'll actually be sending out that link to you as well. So you'll be able to watch it back and share it with other people and so on if you want to. Okay, so another question here is, does performance slow down as you add more site collections? So this is sort of a complicated answer. So of course, you're aggregating more content, you're likely to see less performance coming back, but it doesn't just depend on the quantity. So it's also about how many broken permissions in terms of permission inheritances there on things like documents that you're aggregating from and so on. How many custom columns are you displaying, etc. So if you've got a lot of broken permission inheritance, the Lightning Conductor is having to work out what you're allowed to see as the current user. So that slows it down more on performance than it would do just on having more content where everything is inheriting permission. So it really does kind of depend on each scenario. However, let me just show you a nice feature that we have inside the Lightning Conductor so you can determine how well it's going to perform. So in the Lightning Conductor, let me just close this panel down. We will go to, this view would be great. So this is a document library view. And what we can do is show some stats. So if I turn on the stats here, it tells me how long everything is taking. So we've got the data retrieving is taking for that amount of content. So aggregating 11 lists with 49 items, I can't remember how I configured this one, it's taking less than a second, for 821 milliseconds to actually retrieve the data, and then to render it with any custom formatting that you've created and so on, that's just taking 38 milliseconds in that case. So that's the speed of that. Now, of course, if you're aggregating from thousands of document libraries or sites or something like that, yet you're going to see slower figures than this one. But what you can do is actually find that balance. What you can do is sort of manage your users' expectations of the Lightning Conductor by maybe the default view being something like the current site's documents. So it's a smaller aggregation. And then you could have a larger aggregation as another view that they could select. So they don't get that slow performance if you are doing a huge aggregation when they first hit the page. They're just bringing back a subset of results, but then they're digging deeper and they expect that to take longer. Okay, so I hope that's answered that question. You can't do the link Lightning Conductor views unless you're using SharePoint Online, correct? Yes and no. So the SPFX web part does allow you to, of course, use the connections as you've just seen. If you are using the WSP version for, say, SharePoint 2016, then you can use standard web part connections. They work a little bit differently, but you can achieve similar results to what you saw today using that WSP. I don't have my virtual machines spun up to be able to show you that, but what we will be able to do is just hopefully link out to some documentation or something on how to use connections. So this one's not a question, but it's a statement, I guess. So I've used the Lightning Conductor for years and I love it. So thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. And then the last question is, can you migrate a Lightning Conductor configuration from farm to farm? Yes, you could. So obviously, when you state farm to farm, not tenant to tenant, again, I'm assuming you may be using SharePoint 2016 or something like that. What you can do is export the configuration of the Lightning Conductor, import it into another instance. Depending on how you configured it, if you said things like, I want to aggregate from the current site collection, it's going to use a token in order to just refer to the current site collection. But if you've been specific about what sites you're aggregating from and so on, then those URLs are going to be encoded in that export. And if those URLs are not the same inside the other farm, then you'll have to do some fixing of those URLs by maybe switching them out to tokens or changing the URL that you're aggregating from. And of course, it's assuming that you're using the same column names and so on as well in order for that to work. But yes, in theory, you can absolutely do that. And we have lots of customers that have done. Okay. Can you migrate existing Lightning Conductor settings, etc., to this new version? So again, perhaps if you could just clarify which version I'm assuming SharePoint Online you're using with the SPFX version, but if you're using an earlier version of the Lightning Conductor SPFX for SharePoint Online, then yes, you can upgrade and you won't need to reconfigure anything. Everything will remain the same. So only if you're going from, say, an on-premises 2016 instance or something like that to an online one, you may need to do some mapping and so on in order for that to work. But yeah, upgrading between SPFX versions is seamless. So SharePoint 2016, thank you for clarifying. So if it's SharePoint 2016 and you want to go to this online version, yeah, you'll probably find it quicker and easier to reconfigure, to be honest with you, because a lot of the columns and the sites and so on will be different. But we'll be able to offer you some guidance on that one to our tech support team. Okay, is there any documentation available for creating your own JSON display provider? Great question. We've sort of. So you've got in the Lightning Conductor, because of course every JSON example might be different. But if you choose the JSON display provider, come down to the display, here is our code. So you can see exactly what we've done in order to be able to create, in this case, the slideshow view. So it is commented. You can see how we're doing things like extracting items and providing next and previous functions and things like that. So for the ones that we've created that are in there, there are, yeah, but you can use those as examples on how to create. But the nature of JSON, of course, you need to know how to create JSON. There is lots of Microsoft help documentation on how to do that. But it really depends on what it is you're trying to create. Feel free to reach out to us if there's something specific that you want to do. What we have done for some customers is actually build a JSON view specifically for you. Of course, that's a service that we offer, but we do have that if you want to. And just in case you wanted to take one of our JSON files, you can copy this, create your own file, and then you can upload it to to a JavaScript library that you specify, and that way you can use that inside the Lightning Conductor too. So it's not a sort of step-by-step guide on how to build a JSON view, but yeah, there are some examples in there as well. And yeah, I've just been corrected by one of my team members. You may see it in the Q&A, but yeah, we do have an on-prem to online migration tool. Yeah, from SharePoint 2016 to online, so you can do that mapping to aggregate that content across. All right, it is the top of the hour, and I've run out of questions. So at that point, I'm just going to thank you very, very much for attending. I hope you found this useful. If it's the first time you've seen the Lightning Conductor, I hope you liked it. Of course, if you want to have a private demo, feel free to reach out to us. You can book a demo online through our website. So we'll be able to do that to build an example to your requirements. But also, yeah, if you want to just download a trial, you can download it for 30 days. That's 30 days from install, and you can go through and test it out inside your environment as well. And just feel free to reach out to our tech support team during that time if you do have any challenges or questions. All right, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a lovely rest of the week and a great weekend, and speak to you hopefully on our next webinar, which is not about our products, it's all about Microsoft Viva. So if you want to learn more about Viva, register for our next one. That's going to be towards the end of October. All right, thank you. Take care.